Hey guys, and welcome to the first video that I'm doing on anime, or manga, if you will. I'll go ahead and say this is probably manga because one of my first points about Kyojuro Rengoku, who is the man, Kyojuro Rengoku, I love his name, I really do. But why do I think he's the best character? A man who only spanned about 13 chapters, at least during his arc. He was at the beginning when they're back at the training grounds and like all the pillars are meeting up. But when he is shown saying, tasty, tasty, and he keeps just gobbling everything down, 13 chapters from that point is the movie. For those of you who didn't know, Mugen Train is only 13 chapters worth of 200 and I believe 5 chapters. I did finish it. I'm not going to go over anything spoiler related. But right after I finished that movie, I binge read the manga in about 4 days. I said, no way. I'm like, I need to finish this now because Demon Slayer was that good. The animation is fantastic. And I won't spoil too much, but I apologize because the next arc is going to be the most boring. But please stick with the anime because it only gets better. But if I could recommend one thing, it's to read. Now, let's get into it. Kyojuro. What makes him the best character in Demon Slayer with someone who's finished it? I love everything he's about. His biggest thing is set your heart ablaze, and I find myself telling myself that in real life because of how true it really is. What does it mean to set your heart ablaze? And how does he show that in his life for what he is? You see that when you first meet him. He's eating food like crazy. And you see everything that he does in his life, he attacks it at 100%. His training, his teaching, being a brother, a son, everything that he does, regardless of what the world does around him, he is committed to being 100% of himself. And it's the perseverance story that you see it in combat, but it gets so enlightened in his normal life, just his interactions with Tanjiro and Inosuke and the Golden Boy, I think is the correct translation is what he called him. He never got to the first name basis with Tsunetsu, but he's hardworking, he's very honest. One of the first things he says to Tanjiro is, you have a black blade? That sucks, man, because I've never seen anyone become a pillar with a black blade. And he's just honest. Like, he's not even trying to hurt Tanjiro. He's honest about it. He's very upbeat. Like, I love their conversation when they're on the train. I saw the movie, I think, 3 or 4 times. I'll probably watch it again because I think it recently hit Crunchyroll, maybe? I'm not sure. Probably not Crunchyroll. But even when he first meets him, it's just so much energy. And like when he's telling him the bad news, he's like, okay, like what do you have to say about Breath of the Flames? Like I have no idea. Or Breath of the Fire Breath. He's like, I know Breath of the Flames and they're completely different, which is something you probably didn't know to that point, but they're completely different. He's always up for a challenge. He's always ready to do other things. And I think that gets into the combat aspect of, they actually show him first in a light that is not combat related. They show his spiritual core, they show his dreams, they show what it means to be Kyojuro Rengoku. And you see that when he goes to meet with his father doesn't care. His father was already a Hashira pillar himself, and he does not care that Kyojuro Rengoku was able to accomplish this task. And even in shock, less than 2 minutes later, his little brother Senjiro walks up to him and says, what did father say? Was he happy? Because he's been looking for that acknowledgement from his dad as well when Kyojuro's been gone. And he said, I'm going to be honest with you, man. And he's straight up honest. Like, can you imagine how hard it is to be honest with your little brother who didn't spend that much time with the mother because the mother passed away when he was very, very young. I mean, Kyojuro barely got any time with the mother in general. So when he goes up to him, he's like, Dad didn't care. He told me that. He's like, but I'm still going to do everything that I do and I love, and I'll set my heart ablaze and I'm going to do it anyway. I'm like, yes. Like, he only tries to control what he can control. And it's like such a big thing for me. Like, this character just latched onto me immediately. But we go into the spiritual core, and that's something I don't think a lot of people touched on, is his spiritual core. They talked about how it's very brittle, which means that he's been hurt like down to his core, like literally. I love what they did with the spiritual core. It's a very hard thing to kind of animate and show, but I think they did a good job. More in the anime than the manga. The manga wasn't bad, but they talked about how he's very brittle, how he's hurt. He is a very kind-hearted child, and I feel like that's why, because he's been hurt so much, his mother passing away, his father not caring too much, even though he loves his father forever. But I love how when that person goes to destroy the spiritual core, the reason he stops her is not because he's about to go like limp and like have no motivation, it's because it would make it, and these 3 words, we would be unable to fight. And he needs to fight because that's who he is, and he understands that he has to fight for those that he loves. Everything he trained for was him fighting. So he had to fight for it. And that's why he was locked in that eternal deadlock where he's like, well, I can't kill humans, but I need to be able to fight. So he's just choking this chick out, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like she'd be done. He's a quick judge of character. Akaza immediately tries to kill Tanjiro, right? And he's like, hey, man, like, what are you doing? He's like, well, the weak there's no point to the weak. And that's when the big deadlock happens, where you get the big payoff a little bit later. But Rengoku gets the flashback of his mom saying that your job as somebody who was born strong is to protect the weak. And so Akiza immediately is someone who he's like, no, like, I cannot get on board with what you're saying. You are absolutely wrong. Nezuko too. So after the fight, he says, I was wrong. Because immediately and initially, he's like, no, that's a demon. We have to kill the demon. But afterwards, when he saw what Nezuko did, he's like, that person is a part of the Demon Slayer Corps because they helped protect people. And that's what our job is. But yeah, going back to that, it's the benefit of being human is fleeting, and he understands that through his mother, and that's kind of why he has a spiritual core, and it's just so big. So his works, like, as a person, he is the greatest brother, I think, ever to Senjuro. Not only as a teacher and training him, but he's basically the father figure on top of being the older brother. He's a teacher, and he took on Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke without even knowing Zenitsu's name. But he took them on immediately, and he's like, I would love to train you because he's so passionate about what he does. And he didn't even think about, like, the workload. He's like, yes, I will train you. He's the son of the Flame Pillar, and he's a fantastic son to a father who just does not really care much, even though the dad was very upset when he heard the news about poor Rengoku. If you didn't know that, I mean, obviously Rengoku is no longer with us. Very sad. I do want to make a video later about the strengths of all the pillars and where I actually think Rengoku is, because I think he is underrated in that regard. But he is a warrior against Enmu. When fighting, he decided not to go after the demon itself. And I see that as a selfless task because he's like, these two can take care of the demon, but I don't believe these two could take care of the 5 back cards that I need to take care of. And not only that, but when the train crashed, which is probably something he foresaw in general, he protected every single person. And people like to compare, like, oh, Zenitsu and Nezuko got 3 and he got 5, which means he's, no. He did all 5 of that, protected all 8, and I guarantee he was probably helping them in the meantime, and they were barely hanging on, and he was doing fine. And afterwards, I mean, just to prove that, when everyone else is hurt, dying, or injured, he's able to take on the Upper Moon 3, which is a character that I would argue, once again, another video, I would argue is the 3rd strongest demon in the entire series, is what I would argue. Yes, and I think Akaza recognizes how awesome Rengoku is because he's like, please become a demon, please. He's like, no, I like being a human, I want to die. He's like, meeting my end, that's not a bad thing. It's something I almost look forward to in a way. But Akaza, I mean, he's just trying his best to ask him out to prom or something because he shows him mercy and he's like, please don't die on me. Please don't die. And Rengoku's like, no matter what happens, he sets his heart ablaze with his eye crushed, I believe many bones broken, many bones. He goes like this, and then boom, like all the flames light up. I went crazy in the theater. I was like, you're kidding me. He's not done. And he wasn't done. Rengoku came out. He goes flying through the flames, hits him, and obviously it did not work out how he wanted. But even after the fact that he had a hole through him, like, imagine just, you wouldn't be able to move. You wouldn't be able to do anything. But he was able to hold him. And I firmly believe that Rengoku would have won the fight due to the sun if Akaza had stayed. Obviously, Akaza still had the strength to leave. He is a demon. He has the regenerative ability to make that happen to where he can rip off his arms. But if the fight continued there to see who would die first, they would both die, but Akaza would have died first to the sun, period. I don't know if anyone even doubts that, but it's just, you need to make sure you know that. He's very calculated. When he fights Akaza, he's very quick to be like, okay, I need to be like in on this guy. Like, this guy is not somebody I can keep far away or he's going to be a problem. The fight in the manga is much quicker, so you can tell how quick he's going to analyze and how quick he reacts to save Tanjiro. And not only that, but it's such an important thing that he put his set your heart ablaze and all of that into the main characters. And that will come up later. I won't spoil anything, but he did die with that message. And I think the the overall message of the fight with Akaza was basically strength, which he was like, you can get stronger, which is something what Rengoku wants, but more than that, he believes in the natural way of things, that people should grow old and die. And that's kind of how it is, and that's why he's like, well, time is fleeting, and I'm alright with dying as long as I'm left behind in some other way. Like, he's fine with that, and he's come to terms with it. And that's because of his mom, which, my goodness, when I watched that in English version, because I watched the 2 first ones in the dub, or the sub, when I watched that in the English version, it was like rough. He lived his life for his mom. Even when he was like 5 years old, his mom basically told him, like, you need to protect the weak. And she's like, I'm so happy that I have a gentle and loving child like you. And then his mom passed away. His mom passed away, and he lived his life to that term. It's probably when his dad kind of fell off the edge without the mom, but he kept going. And I think that's something that in his whole life, you just realize that no matter what happens, whether he has a hole through him, whether nobody loves him, whether nobody cares what he's doing, he keeps going with his heart on fire. He has the heart of a lion, and he is a champion that I love this character. I love him. I mean, look at this. He's my phone background. It's just such a good testament of a character that I'm telling you is in 13 chapters. But he is so important of what he means to the whole story in terms of perseverance. I want to read a certain part. Don't worry, no spoilers. But in chapter 66, this basically tells you everything you need to know about him and about what he believes. When he sees his mom, heart-wrenching. But he basically says this as his last message. Live with your chest high. If you get knocked down by your own weakness and cowardice, flame up your heart, grit your teeth, and move forward. Even if you stop in your tracks and cower, you're not going to stop the flow of time. Don't be saddened by the fact that we're all reaching the end. He carried on his mother's final words and made them his own final words and enacted it to his death. He protected everyone. No one on the train died, and no one there died. There's a mistranslation in the manga that I was reading, but it's if Tanjiro dies, then he is the loser. So he never really says, he's like, did I win? Did I lose? He's like, I would be the loser if you died, because my mission is to protect the young buds, not only of the Demon Slayer Corps, but all the people on the train. And he was able to accomplish that easily. And not only that, but Enmu blamed him first. That's the thing I love, is even though the other two killed him, and like Tanjiro had the final blow, and Tanjiro was the first one even awake, he was like, it's that guy is the problem. Rengoku is the problem. I'm like, yeah, because Rengoku's kind of like crazy. But I love that fight. I think it's one of the best fights, and I think it is very telling on where he ends up on the pillar scale, but I'll probably explain that in another video. Yeah, shout outs to Kyojuro Rengoku, man. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend reading it. I think the anime is going to probably finish in about 5 years or something like that, maybe even longer, depending on if they do movie adaptations. Demon Slayer is really good. I might do a spoiler review of it here soon. But yeah, that's it for this video. Set your heart ablaze and never give up. Shouts to Rengoku. Peace out, guys. I'll see you soon.